Diego National City, and we are a binational organization. So we do have offices in Colonia Chilpancingo in Tijuana. So we kind of see it from all perspectives, and we also work at a regional level on issues that, as you know, SANDAG puts forward, like transportation issues, as well as at the state level. So I just wanted to give you that grounding, and then looking at our map of impacted communities, give you this look at Cal EnviroScreen, which I'm sure you know is the tool that the state of California uses to identify those communities that are most impacted by pollution, as well as other criteria. And so when you look at San Diego, you can very well see that the communities that we're working in are in the top 10% of most impacted communities in the state. So this is not just a regional perspective. And then when you take a zoomed in view, what we're looking at here are overall percentages of all the 25 criteria that they utilize. And again, the ratings and the scores for the communities that we're working in. So what happens? This is also displayed as a result of, in the result of children's asthma. And the only measure we have for that is children's asthma emergency room visits. And so what you can see is that for Barrio Logan, the rates are twice as high as San Diego County, and National City, twice, I'm sorry, for Logan, it's 3 times as high. And for National City, it's twice as high. So kids are really being impacted as a result of the air pollution. And life expectancy is impacted for everyone who lives in our communities. Again, you can see that in the neighborhoods that we're in, folks can live 10 to 15 years less than in the healthiest communities in San Diego. And our most recent bout with COVID, which I believe is not over yet, was really impacting our communities. And what we found is not only are communities in South Bay most impacted by infection rate, also by the death rate. And there was a Harvard study that showed that air pollution is a good indicator of where COVID was striking the most. So this SANDAG map from kind of early on really tells the story, I think, especially paired with the other maps that I've shown you. So I just wanted to give you that context a little bit so that you could understand what we're kind of working with overall. And then let's talk about port pollution. We're advancing something called the Maritime Clean Air Strategy. And we really want to have the port require electrification for the heavy duty trucks that come to the port in and out. There are about 10,000 trucks a month that are coming in and out of the portside communities from the 10th Avenue terminal and the National City terminal, the 2 terminals for the Port of San Diego. And the portside communities are exposed to more diesel particulate pollution than 95% of Californians. So we are definitely in one of the most impacted areas. And diesel pollution causes about 84% of the cancer risk from air pollution in Barrio Logan and National City, according to the California Air Resources Board. So as a result of our work with the California Air Resources Board, Barrio Logan and National City were selected as portside communities that would develop a community emission reduction plan. And this is the cover of the plan that was just introduced to the new Air Pollution Control District and was approved by them on this last Friday. This plan will then go forward to the California Air Resources Board for approval. And sitting on the Air Board and having seen many of these plans, many of which are quite good, I do think that San Diego's is very, very good and very ambitious. But in order to accomplish the goals of reducing air pollution, the Maritime Clean Air Strategy, which we'll call MCAS, really needs to step up, because as you've seen, the port is responsible for much of the air pollution in our portside communities. So the SERP goals, the Community Emission Reduction Plan goals, and the MCAS goals, way too many acronyms for all of us, really need to be aligned. So I'm sharing with you some of the SERP goals that we want to include and have included in the MCAS. And the first relates to reducing cancer below 10 per million for each of the facilities along the waterfront, reducing diesel particulate matter by 70% throughout the portside communities. And by 2030, having 100% ZEV trucks going in and out of the port terminals, establishing charging stations at the terminals and then in areas around the terminals, completing the Harbor Drive 2.0 freight improvements and dedicated truck route project that has been conceptualized but not started. And then something that I think impacts not only the port, but throughout the region is reducing emissions from heavy duty trucks servicing indirect sources. And indirect sources is code essentially for warehouses and ports. So right now, if you have a warehouse that's got heavy duty trucks, an Amazon warehouse, for instance, if you've got lots of trucks coming in and out, picking up goods and delivering goods, that warehouse is not responsible for the air pollution that those trucks cause. But there's new rules coming forward that are called indirect source rules that mean that the warehouse operators would be responsible for all of that pollution, which we think is a good thing. Just a couple more slides to say there's concern about, are these trucks available? And they're available today. 5 trucks are available today that could do the kind of work that the ports need. 7 more are coming online next year. And the 100-mile range is really enough for the average drayage truck duty cycle. And that's drayage trucks are those trucks that are servicing the ports. We're knocking on the door of the 150-mile range. Those will be available soon as well. And then the other big conversation is about cost. There's about a $71,000 difference based on the calculator that the state has. And so we know that they are actually quite similar. And we think that there's incentive funds that could be used, especially for low-income truck drivers. The new chair of the Port of San Diego is Mike Suquette, and he joined with Nora Vargas, the new chair of the Air Pollution Control District and county supervisor, to really call on the port to do the right thing and to increase their zero emission vehicles to 100% by 2030, which is 5 years before the governor's executive order to do it by 2035. We have all these organizations that are supporting that, a strong MCAS, and we really invite the League of Women Voters to do that as well. So that is my quick presentation without much on the technical side, but I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I hope that that was what you wanted to hear. Actually, I want to say one other thing. The breaking news is that a week ago today, the Port of San Diego unanimously, the board unanimously adopted a resolution saying that the staff should prepare the MCAS with the 100% ZEV by 2030 goal. The staff had previously neglected to do that, would be a kind way of saying it. And so the port commissioners gave them that direction and also asked that they center health equity in the MCAS as the centerpiece. So I just wanted to bring you that news.
Oh, thank you. Fascinating. Go ahead, bro.
I haven't been down there in a while. Didn't they build a tunnel to keep the air pollution contained more?
No, they've talked about a haul road, which is not a tunnel, but it's a road that would be exclusively for trucks. But that has not occurred either. That might be what you had heard about. And hi, it's been a long time since we've seen each other.
That's phenomenal to think about 10,000 trucks a month going through a neighborhood.
Yep.
Do they have designated routes now, or they're supposed to, but those truckers just go wherever there's no traffic?
We got a truck route adopted by the city of San Diego. So coming out of 10th Avenue Terminal onto Harbor Drive, they are supposed to just use Harbor Drive. But when you look at Google Maps, it tells you to go straight up Cesar Chavez and through the neighborhood to get to I-5. So, you know, there have been fits and starts on this where the port's been handing out leaflets to the truckers to say, here's your route. But we've seen, our members live in the neighborhood. We've installed cameras on people's apartments and homes and have more footage than anybody wants to look at of trucks on residential streets. So unfortunately, they're not abiding by it.
Carol?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat what the port board adopted last week?
They adopted an action directing that the Maritime Clean Air Strategy have an overarching goal for heavy duty trucks to be 100% zero emission or electric by 2030.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I did write a letter supporting that several months ago, but I think that maybe that was back in April or something. But
Thank you.
We'll have to I'll have to talk to the board to see what we would need to do in order to you know, get our logo on that like those other logos. I don't know what our process would be, to be honest.
That'd be great. And you should know, I neglected to say this, because of the new direction that the port board has provided, the staff will be issuing another draft of the MCAS in August. And so you'll have another opportunity, and we'll see, you know, whether it's an ambitious enough plan and whether they have the legal tools in place to actually get them to 2030.
So coincidentally, we have a tour of the port scheduled for as a field trip for next week.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So what do we need to look for?
Ask them where they're going to put the charging stations. Ask them what their plan is, that you've been hearing about the MCAS and that you're excited, I hope, about electric trucks instead of diesel trucks. And, you know, how do they think that's going? I mean, you know, we talk to them all the time. We see them in the board meetings and they're very respectful, but the drafts of the plan have not been ambitious at all. And in fact, you know, the state's saying that all the drayage trucks have to be electric by 2035. We're trying to beat that goal by 5 years. The plan they came up with doesn't even get you there by 2035. So even if we weren't trying to be a little more ambitious and save our communities from some of this polluted air, it's not clear how they'll get there. So if maybe you want to ask them about that and how they relate to the community and how they enforce the truck route.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you say more about enforcement? I think that's a really tough issue. You know, how do they measure? Who enforces? Who has the oversight on this?
Yeah, it's a huge question. So on the truck route itself, City of San Diego, so it's their street. So the port can do all they can to like hand out leaflets and tell truckers where to go. If they choose not to do that, then a San Diego police officer has to catch them. We've suggested lots of things. We have so many pictures of trucks on residential streets from our members, but of course the PD won't accept those. So here's the street sign, here's the truck, here's the license plate. And, you know, I understand that. they have to be there, but there's not enough of them. And this isn't viewed as very important. So enforcement's key. We've suggested that, could they have non-sworn officers in the community that could enforce the rules? And they're saying they can't because it requires a sworn officer to issue a ticket like that. Every place we've gone there's been a block. There's actually something that can be installed on trucks that tells them where to go. And actually informs the enforcement agency if they're going the wrong way. And of course, that costs money, and that hasn't happened yet. But that's a technological fix that could happen.
Could they use parking enforcement? I hate to use the term meter maids, but they can issue tickets, and if they spent maybe a couple weeks doing that for a while, that some of these truckers might get the.
Yeah, actually, they can't issue tickets for moving. That was my idea, Jean.
Oh.
About these folks, they seem to be very competent. And frankly, these trucks aren't going very fast. They're anyway, but they can't because they're moving. So goes in the category of all the things you never wanted to know about. But yeah, so we did have the PD do a very intensive effort, and they ticketed 150 trucks in a week.
Wow.
Because our members said, here's where we see them. And we saw, your theory is exactly right. We saw them reduce. And then as
Sorry.
that's okay. In September, I think that report went to the city council in September of 2019. And we thought we were on a good track. And but as they stopped enforcing, basically the numbers started to go up again. So it didn't kind of last. And the other thing is that these truckers are not all the same people, right? Dole has a huge facility at 10th Avenue, and they hire a trucking company, a fleet, who hires anybody they can hire. This is a whole other underbelly of the freight industry. It's XYZ fleet company that's picking up all of our bananas and pineapples, but that fleet is made up of independent truckers, all of whom are low-wage workers. They have no health benefits. They have no help to keep their truck maintained. So if their truck breaks down, they're done. And they'll just hire another low-wage trucker to take their place. So it's really difficult to enforce this. And they're not always the same truckers. So they might do a great job of educating or enforcing, but then, 50 new truckers show up the next month, and they're just looking at Google to get to the freeway the fastest they can. So it's problematic. And that's why the zero emission trucks are going to solve a lot of problems. Even then though, they're big heavy duty trucks and they don't belong on residential streets, even if they're electric. So we still need to solve this problem.
Well, right. I'm thinking about pedestrian accidents, or, kids getting hit by cars or dogs running out into the street or whatever. It's just not a good situation when you have big trucks on residential streets. But I'm also thinking about, I'm thinking of like when I went to Boston and I wanted to tour the city and I followed the green line, all around the city. Why don't we just paint the street with arrows? And
that's a great idea.
This way.
And your point's a really good one. One of our members lives right on Beardsley, with 2 blocks from the elementary school, and the freeway off-ramp is right there. So there's trucks coming off that off-ramp, which they shouldn't be. There's a huge sign that says trucks don't use this exit, go to this other exit. They still take it. They go right by her house. We have a camera on her house, and below by the elementary school. And there's kids standing there waiting to cross the street. These are elementary school kids who have as you all know, they're not necessarily skilled at figuring out how far away a vehicle is and whether they can make it across the street. So there's crossing guards out there, but anyway, yes, big problem. I'm sorry, Peg, I think you had, did you have a question?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did. I just, I was wondering, now how do these independent truckers get into these zero emission vehicles? Who owns the vehicles?
They own the vehicles.
They, in order to work there, would have to have a zero emission vehicle. Is that how
They would. So here's the idea. So towards getting, which is something you should think about, not just related to this, but as legal women voters, they're going to get $100 million in American recovery funding. So we're advocating that they use some of that for grants for down payments for low-income truckers to buy these new vehicles. This is a strategy that's emerging in different places where there's been lawsuits and there's a settlement agreement, so there's money floating around. You know, they don't have $25,000 to $50,000 for a down payment, but they're already making payments on a truck, and those payments are pretty equivalent. And after probably 3 to 5 years, the truck is cheaper to maintain than the diesel truck. So if we can get them over that initial hump, we could convert the fleets a lot faster than if we just leave them to their own devices. And the state has money as well. And I serve on the California Air Resources Board, and we need those dollars from the state to be flowing. And the governor put $2.5 billion for electrification of trucks and cars, charging stations into his budget. So there should be money flowing, but we need to get them to use it this way.
Who's manufacturing them, and are they coming out in a volume sufficient to really be adopted fast?
Yeah, every heavy duty truck manufacturer is manufacturing now. And they all have trucks coming out this year, next year, that can do 100 to 150 miles. Tesla, and so take this all with whatever grain of salt that you want to take it with, but you know, ultimately they deliver, but you have to wait. They have a truck that can go 500 miles that they say is quite close, that we should see by 2023. That's a game changer, because these trucks that only go 100 miles are a problem. They're in and out of the community, but at National City, we import about 1/3 of all of the cars that come into the Western United States. 500,000 cars a year come through National City. And those are those huge car carrying trucks, and they go many hundreds of miles. And so they're not going to be as good candidates for electrification as the shorter haul trucks. So we really need Tesla and whoever else to be successful in getting those trucks off the line. And that's just going to be longer. Jean?
Diane, this is somewhat off the subject, but how much, as far as solar panels on people's roofs, rooftop solar, would be, are there any grants or monies out there that could help some of the residents in Barrio Logan to get rooftop solar on their homes?
Give me 1 second. Sorry, I took a slug of tea and it went down the wrong way. There's a program called the Solar on Multifamily Housing program that EHC is working with the state, and it's for low-income housing. And it puts solar on apartment buildings that are affordable. And so we've been recruiting apartment buildings and getting them into the program. It's $10 billion over 10 years, and we're in year 3, I think. So we're recruiting them, and it's really a good program. However, even if you put solar on these apartment buildings, it's really tough to retrofit multifamily housing for plugins. So we're really trying to promote the secondary market for plug-in electric so that low-income people can afford to buy them. But if they live in apartments, it's really hard to charge. So that's a whole other challenge that we're trying to work through. And did that answer your question, Jean?
Yes, but I was hoping that some of this would help the tenants with their electric bills.
Yeah, the SOMA program that I just described doesn't allow the landlord to charge for electricity at all, because they're getting this huge benefit, right? They can't just keep charging them for electricity. So yes, it does. And so that saves them however much they're paying in electricity.
Would you spell that?
Acronym is SOMAH, and it's solar on multifamily affordable housing.
All right, thank you.
Sorry. Carol, did you?
Yeah, I was wondering how the San Diego port plan or your port plan compares with other ports in California.
We're the first port to try to do this. And when you saw the slide of all the people, all the organizations that we're supporting, many of them are from outside of San Diego as well, because we're all working together in a coalition across the state. And if San Diego can do this, we think it's going to be a game changer for other ports across the state. So another area got their indirect source rule in LA done. So warehouses are not now going to be regulated. So they went first on that. And we're pushing to get that done in San Diego now that they've conceptualized the template for it. And hopefully what we're doing here is going to be the template for other folks around the state. So we'll be the first, which, depending on your perspective, is a good or bad thing. I mean, a lot of folks don't want to be first. But I thought one of the lines in the op-ed that Mike Zuquette and Nora Vargas did was to lead means that you have to be different. So otherwise you're really not leading. So I thought it was a very, very good line. Yeah, Jim.
Do you do any work with the Navy on air pollution from that source? Are they open to conversation? Just can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, the Navy was part of the Community Emission Reduction Plan Committee that I showed you the cover sheet for, that just was adopted by the Air Pollution Control District last week. So they've been a good partner on that, doing a plan. However, the Navy recently filed for a variance for a big source of their pollution that's coming from generators, diesel generators, 300 of them at their bases. And there's maintenance requirements that the Air Pollution Control District has, and they weren't maintaining them, which means they could be polluting more than they're supposed to. And they said, we shouldn't have to do this because we lease these generators from somebody else. So they should do it. Now, these generators stay on their property for years. So it's not like somebody comes and gets them every day and goes and maintains. It's not like a rental car company or something. So the hearing board for the Air Pollution Control District said, yeah, I don't think so. I think they're yours. You got to maintain them. So this is our latest experience with the Navy, and that wasn't so great. I hope that with the new administration in Washington, that we have the opportunity to get the Navy back on track, because you probably know they have an amazing solar array that was developed during the Obama administration. And they've done some amazing things with best practices for solar, for electrification of some of their vehicles, that kind of thing. And if we could get them back on a climate program, I think they have the money, right? They're command and control. They could just do it. And then they would be a great model for the private sector, I think. So we're not writing them off. We just want them to be the model for everybody else, because they can be. So hopefully there's a new commander that's coming in this month.
Mm.
So we're going to meet with them. It'd be great if you all met with them too, just because there's thousands of cars that come to the base just 32nd Street, right? So how do we help those sailors to get onto public transportation? What can we do to incentivize that? And then they get in their cars to drive around from one place to another. They should have a shuttle system of sorts to get from the dry side to the wet side and all around. You probably all know more about this than I do. So there have been Navy admirals who have talked about these kinds of plans, but they've never gone into place.
Does the trolley go close to that?
Yeah, right across the street.
Where is the Navy solar array?
At 32nd Street.
Is it really large or?
Yeah, it's really large, and they have other kinds of renewable energy systems. And remember, I don't know how many years ago it was now, we had that big blackout that was as a result of something happening in Arizona, I think. And the Navy was the only place in San Diego that had power.
Wow.
Other than others that were off the grid, but we thought it was a great model. I mean, I guess lemonade out of lemons or something, but to say, hey, look, they were able to keep operating. So let's try to all do that.
What about the shipbuilding industry? Are they making changes?
They're pretty resistant to changes. They produce a lot of pollution from like their welding operations, their painting. I mean, it's all the stuff that you have to do to put metal together and take it apart, right? So, but they were part of this community emission reduction plan program and are saying that they want to reduce. Their diesel emissions were so high this last year that they had to report it to the community. And that's high because in San Diego, we have the highest thresholds of anyone in the state of California.
Wow.
We want to reduce. So yeah, so they've got work to do.
Did the bay ever get cleaned up? They were going to
Yeah.
the bay.
Yeah, actually the bay had a cleanup. It wasn't as good as many people wanted it to be, but it's a lot cleaner than it was when we started on that in '85. It got cleaned up in like the mid 2000s. The cleanup was completed.
Anybody else have any more questions? Well, you've given us a lot to think about. But first off, other than advocating for clean air with the MCAS policy, is there anything else we can advocate for, any other top priority we can advocate for ECH?
Yeah, thank you for EHC. Yeah, it's okay. I know. Before we leave the MCAS though, Ruth, are you the right contact person? Okay, so Danny Serrano is our advocate for the port. So if it's okay with you, I'll share your information with him. So if we're gonna do another sign-on letter or when we get our analysis, and we can make sure that you're getting the information. There'll be a public meeting in August on the MCAS. So, and I would love it if you would share your experience of the tour when you get that. The other thing that I think you all have been involved in is another transportation issue, and that has to do with building out our public transportation system. And we're working now on the regional transportation plan to really ensure that it's putting transit where we need it in the communities where people are taking it to work and taking it home. And that includes advancing the purple line, which would go from Chula Vista and actually all the way to the border, all the way through City Heights and into Sereno Valley as a way to really cover that whole area, that inland route to get people from home to work, whether they're going north or south. We think it's really important and it really needs to get done faster than 2045, which is what I think the plan is right now. We want to expand the blue line, which is the line that goes from downtown to the border. It's the most used, and it is basically the workhorse of the transportation system. You know, it pays all the bills, and it's incredibly crowded, so it needs to be expanded. And then we want to get buses into communities, electric buses that can really serve people. I mean, these trolleys take decades to build, right? Let's get buses that actually work and are fast, are cheap enough for people to ride. Let's get free fares for kids going to school and for people under 25, people that need to get to school, and low-income people that may be on assistance. We could combine those systems so that they could get a job and get on the bus. So I think there's just a lot to do in that regard, but buses are an answer. It's not all about trolleys because they just take too long to build. So
They take too long to build and they don't always go where people live.
exactly. And to that point, we also need a first mile, last mile system.
Mhm.
So how are we going to get people those miles to, even if it's a bus, you know, they may need to walk half a mile. So how do we get those shuttles, those electric shuttles going that can get people there? And there's ideas about that. So we're working on that, and you'll see that we're filming right now with community members to tell their stories. And we have what we're calling 10 big moves, because Sandy's got 5. We think there's 10 that they should be paying attention to. So we're going to roll that out through community stories of like a minute each. So look out for that, and please help us share that.
We will. We're trying to become story ambassadors ourselves. So
Oh,
we
good.
would love to watch that with you.
Thank you.
Right. Anybody else? Questions about that?
Very informative. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work. Well, you know, the staff and community members are amazing. So they're doing it all. I just get to be here to talk to you. So
Well,
out there working hard.
you put out a good newsletter, and I
Oh, thank you.
the last one. So yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. And we will keep in touch with you, and I'll be in touch with Danny Serrano and hey, it's Chrissy.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a great
Thank
rest of the
you.
day.